Never mind.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Diane Swan Wright, and I am here with Senator Stanton, and we are conducting a Getting Word oral history interview with two people, Mr. Michael Marshall and Mrs. Shallie Marshall. And we are at their home here in Massanutten, Virginia. They're here on vacation. And today is the 25th of October, 2011. First thing I'd like to do is to thank both of you for allowing us to come here today and for agreeing to participate in the Getting Word Oral History Project.
You're more than welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to start with you, Mrs. Marshall, and I'd like for you to tell me just some basic information, where you live, where you were born, the year of your birth.
I live in Columbia, Maryland now, and I was born in Baltimore, which is about 20 miles away. And I was born on July 20th, 1932, which makes me all of 79 years old.
Okay, okay.
And you were born on what, 1400 block of Landell Street?
I was born 1435 Landell Street. When I was a year old, I moved down to 1431 Landell Street.
Oh my.
Always on the west side of Baltimore.
Okay, okay. And you were born, your parents lived at 1435 Landell?
They did, yeah.
And did they move to 1431?
Everybody moved to 1431. It was a big house,
Mm-hmm.
and 3-story.
Okay.
And my grandmother, grandfather, father, mother, uncle, they all lived there
Okay.
in that house.
And we're going to get back to them. I want to hear specifically about them. Yes.
Yes. Okay, we're going forward with that. And we're going forward with that. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
And Mr. Marshall, can you tell me where you were born?
I was born at Baltimore City Hospital
Okay.
on September the 12th, 1937.
Okay.
At that
And-
time, my mother and father lived on Druid Hill Avenue, over top the barber shop, right there by Dolphin Street.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you were born at Baltimore City Hospital?
Baltimore City Hospital.
Okay. Were your parents from Baltimore?
My mother was from Burkittsville, Maryland,
Okay.
and my father was from Catonsville.
Oh, okay. So right outside of the city.
Right, but
Okay.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Mrs. Marshall, we're going to go back to you. And I want you, again, just for the purposes of bringing us along, to tell us about the people who lived in 1435 Landville and 1431. You named it was several generations, I believe.
Yes, they
And
were.
when you identify them, can you say what their names were?
Yes.
Yeah.
There was my grandmother, Shallie Addison,
Mm-hmm.
her husband, James Addison, who I called Daddy,
Mm-hmm.
my mother, Grace Barrett, my father, Clarence Barrett,
Mm-hmm.
my uncle,
Clarence David?
Clarence David Barrett.
Okay. Did you call him Clarence or did you call him David?
I called him Clarence,
Okay, I mean people called him that.
and I
Okay.
called him that too.
Oh, really?
Clarence.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay.
And my mother I called Grace.
Okay.
My Uncle George, Clarence's brother, George,
Mm-hmm.
and his wife, Elizabeth,
Mm-hmm.
and my brother, for a short time, William E. Brooks. He was 2 years older than me. He was not my father's child. He was my mother's son.
Mm-hmm.
So we lived there for just a year when the house at 1431 became available for sale. And we all moved down to 1431,
Okay.
the whole family.
And you said it was a three-story?
Three-story house.
And tell us about the structure of that house. When you walked up the steps, were there steps?
White marble
Leading to the-
steps leading to a vestibule
Mm-hmm.
and the hallway. It was a big house. It had when you walk in, there was a living room on the side as you walk into the main house.
Right or left side?
Left. If you, and then you walk back, there was a little hallway where the steps went above it.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a big dining room, a kitchen, and a big yard. If you walked straight in when you came in the house, there was a huge bedroom in the front, second floor, a middle room, and in those days they had those walk-through closets. You walked from the living room to the next, from the bedroom to the middle bedroom, right through the closet.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a small room on the right if you kept down the hall, and then the bathroom was all the way at the end.
Mm-hmm.
You can imagine all these people had to use that bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And then on the third floor, again, a huge bedroom in the front,
Mm-hmm.
good-sized bedroom in the rear, and in between there was a big closet, big walk-in closet.
Mm-hmm.
That's about all there was to that house, but it had a coal furnace. And I remember when I was little, you had to be so careful that you didn't get coal gas
Mm-hmm.
in the house, because people had many accidents and deaths from that during those
Mm-hmm.
days.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody smelled it, somebody would yell, "Coal gas." And everybody would run outside until my father would go down and do whatever he did to that furnace
Mhm.
to make it better.
Okay. Okay. Was that like carbon monoxide?
Yeah.
That we would think
Yeah.
right now. Okay. And you said that your family actually purchased the house at 1431.
Right.
Tell me what your grandparents and parents did for a living.
My grandfather was a janitor,
Mm-hmm.
and he worked for Westinghouse for many years.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother was a stay-home mom.
Mm-hmm.
My father was a chauffeur for a private family,
Mm-hmm.
and then later for a man that sold candy to stores, distributed candy and stuff. My mother was a waitress for a restaurant, and my uncle, I'm never sure what he did.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when he went in the military, 'cause he used to always say, "I'm a soldier." It was almost like, "I ain't no boy, I'm a man, I'm a soldier." And then I remember the military. After he was discharged, I still have his discharge papers.
Mm-hmm.
He learned how to fix televisions.
Mm-hmm.
And later on, he opened up a TV shop,
Oh, okay.
TV repair,
Where was that?
on Gold Street in Baltimore.
Okay.
That was after he and his wife divorced.
Oh,
Oh
okay.
yeah, also, Elizabeth moved down there too.
Mm-hmm.
That was his wife. Yeah, Elizabeth Barrett. She got divorced. She was there when I was a young baby.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they divorced, she left, but he stayed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so did they combine their incomes to buy the Landell Street house?
I think my grandfather bought that house because it was in his name, and my father and mother paid rent. My mother was only there for 3 years, actually, because she left my father when I was 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I stayed there with my grandmother, and my mother moved out and took my brother with her.
Okay. And where did your mother move to?
She moved up on Preston Street in Baltimore.
Mm-hmm. On the east side or?
No, on the west side.
West side, okay.
1700 block,
Okay.
Preston Street.
Okay. And you talked to me a little bit before we started this interview about your grandmother. Can you tell me what you said? Do you remember what you said about her?
I just said how much she loved me.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother loved some Shallie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was named after her. She fought to have me named after her because my mother wanted to name me Ruby. And I'm saying, I'm glad she won. But I was her baby. And I liked it like that.
Okay. And now tell me about Shallie's family. Her
well,
father and grandfather.
Talking about Shallie Addison.
Yes.
Well, there was a husband.
Mm-hmm.
And he was very good to Mama. I called her Mama because she was my mama.
Okay.
I didn't see much of my mother after she left.
Mm-hmm.
And so she used to take me when I was a kid everywhere to visit whoever she visited, her friends, relatives. Aunt Annie, who had earlier married her father. I didn't know her husband, Dave Barrett, because he died before I was born. He died when he was 32 years old, when her 2 children, her 2 boys were young. So she felt fortunate that she was able to meet and marry James Addison.
Right.
But she always kept in contact with her first husband, Dave Barrett's family, his sister, who I called Aunt Annie. She would take me over to make sure that I knew them.
Right.
She would take me to visit all the rest of her friends. I remember their names and everything still because she used to always take me. Some of them had children maybe my age or younger or older. And I had somebody to talk with. Because remember when my mother left, I was the only child in the house of all adults.
Oh my.
So I didn't have anybody in the house to play with. I had to go out and play with the neighborhood kids or wherever she took me. Okay.
What about her father?
Her father found the news. We used to go to see, I called him Pat. My father called him Pat.
Okay.
Mama told me things about him, like he was mean. She said when she was little, he would send her to the store and it would be dark and frightening. And she was scared to go out. And he knew she was scared to go out after dark to the store. But he would make her go anyway. at that time there were stories, I don't know, true or false, about Johns Hopkins having paddy wagons with rubber wheels, and they used to take people off the street. And she was scared.
Mhm.
She said he was mean to her. She also said that when my grandmother, her mother, Amelia, had to practically beg him to marry her, to make her an honest woman, so to speak, which made me wonder, now that I know about Mama's sister, whether or not she was out of wedlock, because, you know, being out of wedlock in those days was just tragic.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing like today, where people, try it out first. You know, have your kids, and then 10 years later, you get married if they come out okay, you know.
Right.
Wasn't like that. So I don't know if that was an element in there or not. But Mama used to have her to come visit occasionally, because I remember seeing her. I remember Irene, Aunt Irene, who was Fountain Hugh's sister.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they said, my grandmother said, she lived to be 105. I remember her because I remember the dark brown skin and the short cropped, very gray hair. You know, people didn't wear natural hairdos then.
Right.
But her hair was like a natural, and it was short and all white. So she came around. There was somebody else who came around.
Did she also live in Baltimore?
She must have. She must have, because I can't see that at that age she would be traveling any great distance.
Do you remember anything that you heard her say, Aunt Irene?
No, not specifically.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember another man that was Uncle Farney. I called him Uncle Farney. Now, how he got to be an uncle, I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
How would you spell that, Bonnie?
Forney. But there he was. He could have been somebody from the Grayside family.
Mm-hmm.
You know, kids just didn't ask all these questions.
Right.
I wish I had now, but I didn't then.
Right.
Although not a part of the family per se, there was a woman that Pap lived with. Her name is just slipped right off my tongue.
Maybe it'll come back.
I hope so. She had a son named Gilbert.
Mm-hmm.
He used to come to visit us, and
How old was he when
he
you
was a
remember
grown
him?
man
Mm-hmm.
when I was a kid. But what is her name? He lived in when we used to visit him out on this farm. I remember we all sit in this kitchen. We had coal stoves. It was very hot in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd sit around and talk. And before we would leave, he would give us this big bushel of walnuts, the kind that you need a hammer to break.
Mm-hmm.
And what is her name? She was a heavy-set woman that he lived with.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember these shoes kind of dragging on the floor, you know, like flip-flopping shoes.
Right.
Miss Susie.
Miss Susie, okay.
And
You don't remember her last name at all?
McAllister.
Oh, okay.
Susie McAllister.
Okay. And let's go back to visiting Pap. How would you get there?
Car.
Okay.
My father used to have a 36 Ford
Mm-hmm.
with a rumble seat in the back.
Okay, what color was it?
Green.
Green. Okay. A
Mhm.
dark green?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I remember it so well because when I got older, I wanted him to give me the car. I wasn't old enough to drive, but save it for me.
Right.
And he sold it to a boy next door.
Oh, my.
The farm was up there off of Park Heights Avenue, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, tell
it's
us
on
about
Parker.
how long it took to get there and which way, do you remember which way you went?
No, because I wasn't in the streets.
Right.
You know, but
We went down Ricestown Road.
Might have.
Pennsylvania Avenue turns into Ricestown Road.
Mm-hmm.
And it was
but
right
and it's
there.
a church there now.
Yeah, St.
Mhm.
What's it? Catholic churches.
Yeah. But it was like a treat to go anywhere
Mm-hmm.
when you're a kid.
Right.
You know.
Right. And do you remember whether you would go on Saturdays or Sundays or at holidays?
I think we probably mostly went on Sunday because of the working hours, you know,
Mhm.
that my father would have to go to work.
And so you would drive out there in his green Ford, and when you got to the farm, was there a gate to let you in, or did you just drive up a road, or?
Seemed like we just drove up a road. I don't remember any gates or anything, but we used to drive up and he'd come out and greet us, you know.
How would he greet you?
Well, I remember I greet me because I always had to hug him, and he had this beard
Mm-hmm.
and all his hair around his face, and I had to put my face in all of this hair.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I don't want to do this.
Right, right.
But what are
right.
you going to do when you're a kid?
Right.
That's what you do, you know. But Pat would, he said that he only used water in private places. Otherwise, he washed in alcohol.
Oh my. Alcohol.
Alcohol. So his skin was very preserved.
Isn't that something? And did he ever say why he started doing this?
I don't know, he had funny ideas about things like that. Just
Mhm.
like one time, and these are stories that were told to me.
Mm-hmm.
He got sick one time, and he went to the hospital, and the doctor told him he had appendicitis, and they were going to operate on him. He said, He got his clothes on and left. He said he wasn't having any, and he never went back. He didn't have any ruptured appendix or nothing else, you know.
Mm.
So, and I don't think he was ever sick, but 2 weeks before he died.
Really?
Yeah.
And do you remember him talking to you at all about school or about what it was like for him growing up or
Only
anything
that,
like that?
only the thing that stands out in my mind is that it must have been a tough time for him when he was a kid because he was young when the Civil War ended
Mm-hmm.
and people had to go and fend for themselves. And he said he got to Washington before he got to Baltimore, and that he had to eat rats in order to survive. He did tell me that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, maybe that's why you live so long. Because they used to associate, you know, I think all the studies they used to do on rats,
Mm-hmm.
longevity studies.
Right.
So maybe he got a hold of something good in there, you know. But he was a survivor.
Mm-hmm.
And he used to, well, his thing was early to bed, early to rise, being a farmer. He
Mhm.
went to bed at sundown and he was up at sunup. And even after he retired, he walked every day. He got dressed every day,
Mm-hmm.
he put on a suit with a vest and tie, like you think he'd be going to some business. And he would walk out in the park and he would sit on the bench and, you know, he would greet people. He was...
Now, which park was this?
Well, when he lived with us, he went to Harlem Park.
Okay.
Then when he moved to the senior home on Carrollton Avenue, he went to that park up there, Lafayette Square.
And do you remember what happened that brought him to live with you all?
Yeah, Mr. Shirley's family did not, Mr. Shirley died, and the family didn't want to keep the farm. Mr. Shirley was the name of the owner of the farm.
Okay.
So he was 99 then.
Okay. And was it in the fall or was it in the summer when he came to live with you? Do you
I don't remember. I just know that there he was, and he had the small room that I told you about next to the bathroom.
On the second floor?
On the second floor. That was his room.
Okay.
And he used to sit in my grandmother's room a lot, though, because she had a rocking chair in there for a while and then a recliner. And he used to like to sit there.
And would he look out the window?
Yeah, look out the window.
Now, if I remember correctly, those houses had 3 windows in the front.
And he was looking out the middle.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was going on in Landville Street? I mean, Landville was a good-sized street.
Yeah.
So what would he have seen out that window?
Oh, he would see, I hate to use the term, but the countrymen across the street. That's what we called them, because they were people up from the country.
Just
See,
up
we
from
were
the country.
city people.
Right, you were the city people.
That's horrible, but that's the way it was. And it was a lot of them, and they usually were doing something to look at. There was trackless trolley out there.
Number 21.
Number 21 went by there. We had lamplighters then.
Oh, yes.
And they would come in the evening and in the morning, put it out, come in the evening, turn it on. There was, quite a bit of activity.
Those were gas lights?
Yeah.
Yes.
We also had the jet still in our house.
Okay.
Yes, of course, you don't turn it on.
Stays on.
Huh?
It stays on.
Yeah, but you keep it off.
Right, right. Okay.
I mean, the jet's out of the wall.
Oh, okay.
But not in use.
Right.
Not in use. Okay. Okay.
No, because, and the other thing we used to do, talking about family, everybody would sit around and talk in the evening after dinner. And we had a coal stove and a gas stove. But the coal stove gave off a lot of heat and it was warm, you know. And people would sit around and talk and tell all these ghosty stories. I remember as a kid.
Did your grandfather have any stories to tell?
No, it was mainly my uncle. He was the clairvoyant.
Oh, okay. Okay.
At least the way he used to talk, he was. Had me scared to go upstairs and go to bed.
And what would Mr. Hughes say?
Oh,
to these stories?
He just sat and listened more than anything.
Now, let me ask you. We're gonna come back to your other family members, but I want to focus on you for a little bit. And Mr. Marshall, I'm also going to ask you some questions in this section. Tell me about your educational life from the very beginning.
I started age 5 in the kindergarten, and I went through
which school?
132, which was Coppin Demonstration School. Coppin was on the 3rd floor of that school. And my father used to take me to school. He used to drive me in his car until I got, old enough to walk there. And I used to, more than just education, I used to pass by the little aunt that I had on my mother's side, my mother's aunt, who lived by herself. And
What was her name?
Grace, just like my mother's
Just like your
name.
mother's name, okay.
Her name was Grace Brooks. And she had very straight hair, and she could sit on her braid. And when World War II came, they threatened to put her in a concentration camp because they thought she was Japanese.
Isn't that
Isn't
something?
that something? Her complexion, her eyes. Anyway, but I used to go to that school. It was a school that made you feel special because only the smart kids, I thought, went there. Then I went to junior high school at 130 on McCullough Street for 2 years. I skipped from the 7A from the 6A to the 7A. I skipped the 7B. And so that was awful now as I look back that they skipped me there because I missed out on ratio and proportion and some fractions that became very important to me later.
Later on.
I didn't know it was important then. And then when in the 9th grade I went to Douglas High School up on Carey Street. And I took a commercial course, again, mistake. Easy way out for me, commercial, you know, you add and subtract. No, all the sciences that you needed, you didn't get. So by the time you got to college, because you wanted to be in a scientific field, you didn't have the background and you had a hard time trying to get what you didn't have and at the same time learn a whole lot of new things.
Right.
So, but somehow I got through that. I
Now,
went,
I'm a little bit surprised that you went into the commercial course.
well, my girlfriends and I had three friends. We all stuck together, and that's what we did. One of them became a doctor. I took what I did and became a nurse. And the other one, well, she became a typist type of Social Security, so she didn't care.
Yeah.
But I should have had some guidance because I always said I wanted to be a nurse. But when I got to school and ran into,
Your friends.
well, I ran into statistics, for example.
Okay.
I thought I would die. And so after I left high school,
What year did you graduate from Douglas?
1950.
Okay.
And this was a strange kind of time for me. Being a teenager, well, there was another important thing in my life that I didn't mention, that after my parents separated for a short time, my father moved out of the house because my grandmother, wait a minute, a woman that had been a friend of my mother's had moved into the house. And she and my father kind of struck up an affair. And my mother was a party girl. She was going out dancing, having a good time. And this other woman was babysitting my father and me. Okay, so it ended up with my mother giving him an ultimatum and him choosing the other woman. Her name was Margaret. So I didn't really spend any time with my mother during those years. As a matter of fact, I have a big blank of ever even seeing her through certain years. Although I must have but I didn't see her much. But as a teenager, when I found out that she was much more lenient in what I might want to do with my social life, I started staying with her sometime.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than at home where my father was strict. My father moved out, then he came back, and he and Margaret got married. That was okay. My grandmother never did like Margaret, but she used to say, don't go eat with her because she'll starve you to death. I mean, she had all kinds of things to say.
Right.
And I'm missing things because
okay.
it's so much, you know, to your life that,
Right.
I mean, we used to have family dinners, and I remember chicken every other Sunday and roast lamb every other Sunday. Well, my grandmother and Margaret didn't get along. But I had a choice of where I wanted to eat, but Margaret always gave these little small portions. And always did, even after, if we go by their house years later. But my grandmother said, don't eat with her. She starved me to death. What Margaret had to do after Pap left was to convert that room into a kitchen.
Oh, on the second floor.
And
Okay.
that's right. So I mean, the small room to have to have stove and some cabinets, a table and chairs in there, and she didn't have to be subjected to whatever it was about my mother. You're right. So all those things, the dynamics were going on in the house. At the same time, my Pat and my grandmother had their differences, and I don't remember what they were, but it was apparently some kind of friction between the two. And that's why after staying with us for a while, when he was 99, he went up to that Carroll home, and he ran into some difficulty there because he was doing something with those ladies up there.
At 100.
He was over 100. And they said, come get him out of here. So he came back. And then apparently the friction was there again. So he went back to the Carroll home, and he stayed there until he died.
Okay.
But I don't know the nature of friction. I just know that it was there. Because I didn't see him do anything wrong.
What about the rest of your education? You stopped.
Okay, this is mine.
That's okay.
I went to nursing school when I was 19.
Where?
Rockland State Hospital in Orangeburg, New York.
How did you hear about that place?
I was looking around for a school. Somebody told me about it, about New York, because they only charged for your books or something like that. They paid you a stipend, and they gave you a place to live. And here, University of Maryland was prejudiced and did not take black students. And the only place available in Baltimore was Providence Hospital. So when I heard about New York, I applied and was accepted there. So I went for 3 years, and right after I finished, like a dope, I got married. Met this guy.
In New York?
In New York, in a bar. Tall, handsome, no good. Paranoid schizophrenic. Psychopath. He had all of the features of all the horrible things in life. Anyway, I stayed for 4 rough years and came back here. And so Michael, who I said, oh, a little young boy. Paid him no mind, but I went back to school.
So where did you meet him?
In my house. My brother invited him to a party that we had. I had seen him on the elevator, University of Maryland Psychiatric Institute.
Mm-hmm. I was an attendant,
okay.
But like her brother, Billy and I were attendants at the Psychiatric Institute. And when Shallie came to work there, we had already been there for a couple of years or so. And Billy and I used to pal around a lot. So and so he invited me to a party. It was the day after Thanksgiving. One of my fraternities would always give a party there. And the fella that Shallie was with, Drury.
Was Drury. Drunk. Sat on the couch and got drunk.
And the girl I was with, nice girl, but I couldn't wait to get her home, and get to this party. And when I came in, the door was open for some reason. I just walked in, and Shallie came down the steps and went, "What are you doing here?" She was giving me that snide look, like she was way up here and I was down there, which was true. And that's how we started together. She had this painting on the wall that she had made and painted. And I had just finished this course in art appreciation. I thought I was a critic. I didn't know it was her painting, but then she asked me about it, and I was telling her, oh, I gave you all kinds of, whoever wrote this must have been depressed or something. Going for the painting was all dark and dreary.
Oh, I was. Just got out of a marriage,
Right. So I just tore it up. And then she said, I painted it. I said, oh, there you go.
Will she ever talk to me again?
Yeah, you're right. So I invited her to go to Mass with me the next morning. And we went to Mass over to the cathedral up on Charles Street. And at that time, I remember we saw this painting on the wall of Doubting Thomas. And we looking at it. And she stumbled, fell in my arms. From then on, that was it.
You fell in love.
Yeah.
Oh, my. Isn't that something?
So,
I'm sorry.
So we got married June the 30th, July the 30th, 1960, in St. Pius Church, and we've been together ever since.
Isn't that something? Well, tell me about your early education and how you ended up as a psychiatric attendant.
You want me to finish school?
No, I'm going to come back to you.
Okay.
How I did?
Yes.
Okay. Well, my early education was, I never went to kindergarten. I started in first grade at a school called Lauraville. It was in Govins, Maryland, because I lived at that time, 1111 East Arlington Avenue. And we crossed the lot where WCAO had its radio station. And I think the school is not there anymore. It's a filling station now. But after leaving Wilson Park, which is Govins, we lived at 758 Dolphin Street. And I started going to school at St. Pius School. It was on the corner of Harlem Avenue in Arlington. And it's funny now, when that building was sold to the same building that Fountain Hughes lived in. It was the N&M Carroll Nursing Home. But I went to school at St. Pius from the 3rd grade to the 8th. And then from there, I went to Douglas High School. I finished Douglas in 1955 and went to Morgan. And I was at Morgan for about 2.5 years. And I got drafted. I went in the Army. Went in the Army for 3 years, 1 month, and 23 days. And came back. And I was driving the bus for the Baltimore Transit Company before I started back, finished Morgan. It took me about, from the time I went into Morgan to the time I graduated, about 17 years. So I graduated in June of 1972. I had a Bachelor's of Arts degree in English. I had started off, for that being pre-med, I'd started off as pre-med, but I had a trouble passing organic chemistry. Failed it twice.
That's been known to stop people.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, I wanted to be a doctor, heart specialist. But that's after I left Morgan in '72.
Which fraternity?
I was in Beta Sigma Tau at that time, which was the first interracial, intercultural fraternity in the United States. I left Morgan, and let's see, I guess the next thing, because I was married to a Shallie by that time, and my father came to me one day. He says he was interested in.
Wait a minute, you got your MSW before
No,
then?
I didn't get my MSW before that. My father came and his girlfriend. He said they were interested in going into mortuary science, and so I said, "Oh, yeah, okay." Shallie and I said we would do that. So we went to Catonsville Community College, and we got a Associate of Arts degree in mortuary science. So we both did that. And then at the time I was working at Howard County Department of Social Services. And later, I must have been 1990 something. 1990, I guess, 89 or 90. I decided to go back to University of Maryland to get my master's in social work. And I got my master's in social work in 91. And then that was my education. And later on I went.
When did you retire?
I retired from Johns Hopkins. Retired from Howard County in 1997.
Okay.
1997.
Okay. Okay. And Ms. Marshall, we're going to pick you up again. You had gone to work at the University of Maryland Psychiatric Institute.
Okay.
And tell me what happened there.
Well, I went to school part-time at night, just kind of fooling around, a few hours here and a few hours there.
Usually, where did you attend?
University of Maryland,
Okay.
at the Baltimore campus.
City? Campus.
Baltimore City. And I had more than half the credits already from taking an exam and for my nursing school. Okay. Because New York, the standards were higher. New York, Florida, and California, I think. Anyway, then one day the nursing instructor said, all of those that haven't finished by a certain date are going to have to start over. Okay. I went summer, winter, every possible way, took as many credits as I could to get out of there. So in 1971, I went to Hopkins. Well, I was working at the time. I went to work for the National Institute of Mental Health. And I took off. They let me take that time out to go and get a master's at Hopkins in public health.
Okay.
So I did that.
Very good school.
Yeah. So after that, and I kept working at NIMH. And later on, I went back, Catholic U, and got a master's in psychiatric nursing.
Now let me ask you this: was this in Bethesda? That you were working in Bethesda at the
No, I was working in Rockville, and
Okay.
their administrative offices are there for public health service
Okay.
in Rockville.
Mm-hmm.
And then with Michael, later on, I got AA in mortuary science, got licensed.
Mm-hmm.
Then one day we said, "This is what we want to do. They got AIDS out here and all these problems. That's a 24-hour job at our age." I was the oldest person in the class. One person dropped out and made me the oldest. I was getting good grades, but I was ancient. I said, "Do I want to do a 24-hour job?" Somebody called me to pick up a body at 4 o'clock, hauling bodies. Although I enjoyed the embalming, I enjoyed the courses, period.
Right. Right.
I let it all go. So just something I didn't enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'd rather travel. So I traveled a lot in my job.
Mm-hmm.
Even after I retired, December 1989, I worked as a consultant on some programs.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess through about 96 or 97, but that was at my convenience, I could do
Right.
that.
Right.
Then we just started traveling whenever we could and ended up with a whole bunch of timeshares
Mm-hmm.
and less money to pay, but we go.
Yeah, we're timeshare junkies.
Good. Now I know from what Cinder shared with me, you have a timeshare in Virginia Beach,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and you've told me about the one in Cancun.
Bunch in
We
Cancun.
got 6 in Cancun.
6 in Cancun.
No,
Isn't
it's
that
more
wonderful?
than that.
8.
Would you believe we stayed 5 weeks each time? That means 10
10.
down there.
Okay, that's wonderful. And then
New
the one
York
here.
City. Here, New York City,
Oh, a timeshare in New York City.
Yeah.
the Manhattan Club.
Isn't that wonderful?
And
How often do you go there?
once a year.
Every June.
And Las Vegas.
Okay.
Got one
Where
in,
else?
did you say Williamsburg?
Williamsburg.
When do you go there?
When?
When?
Last year we went 4th of July.
Okay.
This year,
Okay, that's a
4th of
wonderful
July.
place to be the 4th of July.
That's what we thought. And had a big thunderstorm. Every place had to cancel the fireworks. But the next day,
Mm-hmm.
some places rescheduled, and we went to one place near Williamsburg.
Mm-hmm.
The fireworks were excellent,
Isn't that something?
beautiful.
Okay. And I guess I'm wondering if you ever thought about Fountain Hughes over the years and the part that he played in your life.
Oh, sure. I think about all of my relatives.
Mm-hmm.
One part I'm hoping that he's playing is his longevity. I told my doctor, I said, my great-grandfather lived to be 109, and his grandfather lived to be 115. So you're going to just have to stay around here and take care of me.
And what did he say?
He just laughed. He said, I don't know about all of that.
I'm wondering if there's anything that you remember about Mr. Hughes telling you anything about growing up other than the part about being in Washington and the hard times he had there?
No, I can't remember him telling me stuff about growing up. Seems like he didn't want to talk about it that much.
Mm-hmm.
Must have been a horrible time for him.
Mm-hmm. Anything about his father?
No, and I,
Mm-hmm.
like everybody, you wish you had asked.
Right. Anything about Thomas Jefferson?
No, he would have been around, would he?
Thomas Jefferson passed in 1826.
Oh, he was already dead.
Right, right. But of course Monticello was still there.
Well, who owned it?
After Thomas Jefferson died, another family purchased it, and they used it as a family home. And then later on, around the time that you were born, it was purchased by a group of people who made it into a museum.
Yeah, I have been down there. We went down there,
Mm-hmm.
and I had no notion that Pap had any. I think many times I have said to Michael, my great grandfather's from down here somewhere.
Right.
That's about as far as I get. And I
Mhm.
said, was it Charlotte or Charlottesville or what was it? You know,
Uh-huh.
that's about,
Mhm. Right.
and just kind of let it go because I was never sure. And my grandmother, apparently, if she knew where he was from, she never talked about it. She was born in 1889.
Mhm.
And,
Once he had gotten to Baltimore.
oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't hear Virginia? Anybody talking about Virginia?
No, because as far as I was concerned, all of my family came from Baltimore. You know, I didn't know.
And you can sort of laugh at the country people.
These people were far the country than that.
And let me ask you this: do you remember Mr. Hughes saying anything at all about the farming that he did, or the planting that he did, or working with the horses? Any of those things?
You mean other than Shirley's farm?
No, what he said about Shirley's
I
farm.
mean, we saw what he was,
Uh-huh.
what he had on the farm because he
Well,
used
tell
to
us
give
about
us.
tell us about that.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, and being young,
Mm-hmm.
that seemed like a huge farm to me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it wasn't that big, but
Uh-huh.
it seemed like it.
Were there other workers there?
No,
He was the only one.
he and Miss Susie were the only people that we saw when
Mhm.
we went there.
Okay.
And we know that he did all of his work because he got up so early in the morning and
Mhm.
worked all day,
Mm-hmm.
and it was producing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember those walnuts
Mm-hmm.
more than anything.
Where did you crack them?
My father had to do that with a hammer
Right.
on
Right.
on like
Flat iron.
no, he used a hammer.
What did he used to hit it with?
A hammer.
But didn't he have a flat iron or something to hit it with? No?
A hammer.
What did he place the walnuts on?
On some, seems like it was outside,
Uh-huh.
as I remember. So he must have placed on something concrete.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Was your backyard, was it paved or did it have?
Partly.
Partly.
Yeah.
Did anybody have a garden back there?
No, nobody raised anything back
Mhm.
there.
Mm-hmm.
We had a dog back there,
Uh-huh. What was his name?
Bob.
Bob. What
You
type
know-
of dog was he?
Sooner.
Okay.
A what?
A sooner.
Soon to be
And
one
you know, I
thing
was
and to be
scared.
another. Oh.
I was scared of Bob. They had to when I was little. They would, and he would be outside, and they were gonna bring him in downstairs and put him in the cellar for the night.
Mm-hmm.
They would have to wait for me to go up the back steps and stay until he went through the house.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not through the house,
Right.
but just from the yard
To the
to the
basement.
kitchen to the
Mhm.
basement. And the reason why that was when I was younger, my grandmother had fed him. And I didn't notice you don't go play with dogs when they're
You're
eating.
yeah.
And he turned around and snapped at me. And after that, I was afraid of dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Hadn't been before.
Mm-hmm. Now you have.
Yes, it's not such a bad picture, Pat.
No, it's really a quite good one. Tell me about that photograph. Where was it taken?
Out on his farm where he raised off.
Uh-huh. And
Jeez.
do you see any of the
Those-
crops that you remember him raising?
No,
Corn, maybe? Is corn there?
I don't know what that tall stuff is.
Mm-hmm.
Might be corn. What do you think? I don't know.
What's the building?
That's what I'm looking at, because the only building that I ever remember was the one that we went in his kitchen. That's the only place in his building that I ever went in was a kitchen, because I remember the heat.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember him like sitting in front of us, and like he sit there, and Miss Susie walking around with those shoes, and we over here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what I
These look
remember.
like pole beans. You know,
Maybe.
string beans.
Yeah. Did you want a copy of this picture?
Yes.
Oh, we certainly would,
Yes.
Sure you can.
yes.
One thing we might be able to do if you let us is take it with us and then mail it back to you. I don't know.
If you
Though.
want
Yeah,
to.
yeah, we'll
Have
be
to
sure
have to
to do
think
that.
about that. Might not be the best thing. We're running out of tape.
Okay. I don't have any other questions. Do you have additional questions?
Well, I forgot them because tape is running out. But I'll stop it because there's only